Hey guys, this is Grandmaster Max Illingworth here, and in this video I will share with you the first game of the final between Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Maxime Vachier Lagrave from the Riga FIDE Grand Prix. Now, normally I like to show somewhat shorter or somewhat low level games in this channel, but I thought I'd share a high level game because I think this one is a really model example of how to deal with the Grunfeld defense, which is one of the more annoying defenses at the higher levels of play against 1d4. So let's get into the game. We had d4, black played knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3. So I had a pure Grunfeld with d5. And essentially the idea of the Grunfeld defense is that after white exchanges the pawns, say white plays e4, as it happened in the game. And after takes and bishop to g7, black can try to pressure the white center, where it is true that white has currently occupied the center, but because the c3 and e4 pawns are undefended, it means that black can get quite a lot of pressure, playing moves such as c5 and knight to c6, and also queen a5 to attack the white pawns. And you can say that the move that Shak played here is aimed against this plan, where white played this move queen to a4, which is perhaps not as popular as the bishop e3 that has been seen in some of Carlsen's games lately, for example. However, queen a4 is a move saying that all of black's ways of dealing with the check will make it harder for him to get into c5. So for example, if black plays knight d7, then yes, he will get into c5, but after knight f3 and castles, then white can sort of develop normally in this case with bishop e2, c5 and castles, and make the case that the knight on d7 would much rather be on c6, pressuring that pawn on d4. To be fair, black's position is probably still quite fine here, but it requires somewhat precise play from black to deal with white's strong center. And that is why in the game black played the move queen d7 instead. So white played the move queen to a3. You can also put the queen on b3, but the idea of queen a3 is to stop this c5 break for as long as possible. So black played b6, a solid fianchetto, knight f3, bishop b7. So both sides are developing quite normally here, although it's probably quite likely that black will need some sort of improvement, and perhaps at this point one could look into a move queen d6, trying to equalize the game by exchanging queens. It is true white could still refuse to trade a queen's move like queen b3 or queen a2. Perhaps queen b3 would be a nice choice to clear the way for bishop a3. But okay, this is something I guess for the theoreticians to look into in more depth. So in the game, black played c5 in this position, and normally white was playing this move bishop to g5 and trying to pressure the e7 pawn, but in the game Shak played the move bishop to f4. It's a new idea, and I think quite a nice one, where basically the bishop will be very active on this diagonal. So after bishop f4, black played c takes d4. There might be a case for delaying cd4 and playing a move like e6 first to try and hold back the d5 push. But in the game, black played c takes d4, c takes d4. And this was quite a critical moment in the game where black played this move knight c6, which, as it turns out, probably isn't the best move in this position. And the reason is because white will gain a tempo with d5 and sort of kick the knight away like this. Now you might be wondering, well, what if black takes a pawn with bishop takes d4 in this case? Well, that would be a very risky move to give up the fianchetted bishop for the knight. I think that after knight takes d4 and queen takes e7, that white would simply be doing very well in this position after queen takes b7, as the white bishop is just a lot better than the knight in such an open board. And also in the middle, later in the game, white may well consider some idea like a4 and later a5 to try and weaken the black queenside structure. So going back to the game, I think that white is already has a little bit more pleasant of a position. After knight c6, white played d5, using the point that if black plays bishop a1, well then we can play this d take c6 intermediate move before taking back on a1 and getting 2 pieces for the rook. So in the game, black played knight a5, which is not so ideal because the knight ends up stuck on the edge of the board for the rest of the game. And this is one reason this game is such a model example for how to keep the opponent's piece out of play and make it always feel like we're playing with one more piece than the opponent. If black played knight d7 and played knight d4 instead, then I think white would simply take, and I think that this position would be quite a lot better for white. Even rook a d1 could be a nice idea to sort of discover an attack on the bishop later. Also, rook a c1 is not bad either to get in with the rook on towards c7. And white I think just has a much more pleasant position. And in the Grunfeld, it's kind of important for black to be able to challenge a white centre in some way. If white's able to keep this extra space for free, then white will simply have a very pleasant advantage, as we'll also see in the game, which after d5 continue with knight a5. And okay, after rook a c1 and rook f to c8, I think this position makes quite a nice puzzle actually. It's true that white has several good moves and maybe black would have been better off playing rook a to c8, but what would you play as white in this position? So feel free to pause the video if you need more time to think about it. So there are quite a few tempting options for white. In the game, white played the move h3, which is just a nice move to make a look for the king and sort of ask black what his plan is. Because if black does play a move like e6, well, we'll see what happens there in the game. Incidentally, there are other good moves as well. For example, knight e5 is quite tempting to sort of kick the queen away with tempo. Also, even h4 is quite interesting, using Harry the h-pawn for even some potential play on the king's side. And also rook fd1 probably also keeps an advantage. So I mean, almost whatever your move was probably a good one. But basically, this is indeed a position where white is just much better. And after h3, black really sort of struggled to find a good move in this position. It's not so easy just to trade the rooks either on the c file, because if black does trade, then he's just going to still face quite a strong initiative where white can take and sort of bring the knight to e5, and once the knight gets towards c6, it will be a very tough position for black to defend because he simply lacks space for his pieces here. So in the game, black played the move e6, and okay, how do you think white should deal with the attack on the d5 pawn in this case? Well done. You can play the move d6, as Shak played in the game. I mean, this d pawn actually is known as Delroy, and it's called Delroy in the Grunfeld because this d pawn is just very strong when it gets to d5 and d6. As a pass pawn, it's really going to tie black up in trying to defend. So black thought he could defend with f6, trying to shut out the white pieces with a move like e5. So what might be a good move for white here? So for this one, as a hint, you might like to think not just what white's next move would be, but what would your follow-up be after black's most natural reply. So in this position there is, I think, again, more than one good option, but the one that's particularly strong is to play e5 as a prophylactic move against the black player playing e5. And the whole point, which is something black missed in the game, is that after bishop takes f3, white has the intermediate move e takes f6 before black can get in f takes e5. And it is true that the white king rather, is very exposed from the doubled pawns. The problem is that black is just not really in a position to exploit this fact, where in the game after e5, well, the bishop retreated to a square to attack the black pieces. So white played bishop d2 to attack the knight as such. And the point is that black is not able to take this pawn on h3, or he can, but he will end up in a very tough situation where white can play bishop e4. And it's noteworthy that just having the one queen in the attack is not going to lead to checkmate, I need to bring other pieces in the attack for the attack to be successful. And here if black plays, let's say, rook b8, then white will just invade the black position of rook c7, and white's initiative here will just be so strong that black can't really save himself. Simply the d-pawn is far too much of a force to be reckoned with here. So in the game, black played rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and actually the game ended only a few more moves, which might seem a bit surprising, but every piece that's traded, it makes the d-pawn even stronger in the endgame. So it takes, and okay, there are a few good moves for white. You might like to think you can find a move that that Shak played in this game. And bishop b4 would also be a good move, but first white defended his h3 pawn from the attack. And when you're in a winning position, you can afford to sort of take your time often and just sort of make sure that you'll win it by killing all the enemy counterplay. So after bishop d8, white now played bishop e4. And if black does try to play a move like knight to c4, then, well, we can play queen b3 and pin the knight to the king like this. So the fork is really not a big problem for us. After queen e6, at queen to d3, king g7, and after bishop c3 and queen f6. So here I played this quiet move of king f1, just emphasizing the fact that black doesn't really have a useful move in this position. And it might seem a little early for black to resign, but I think that black's resignation here wasn't premature, because basically the knight doesn't have a move, the bishop doesn't have a move. In fact, even hard for black to have a particularly useful pawn move. And white just has this very straightforward plan of playing queen d5 and attacking this pawn on e5. If you try and stop it with queen e6, then f4 is just a really deadly pin. If, say, you try queen f4, then there'll be queen to d5. Can be one good move. You can even play king e2 first, actually, just making sure you don't allow some annoying queen c1 check, for example. So you can start with king e2 and then go for your queen d5. And if black tries to cover that with bishop f6, then you can just push d7 and the bishop will have to go back anyway. So it's clear that black is just completely dominated in this sort of position. So okay, I know it was a bit of a long video, so thank you for making it to the end. I hope you really found this game useful and it can give you a good weapon against the Grunfeld using the queen a4 exchange variation. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we'll see if MVL was able to come back in a must-win situation in this match. Thanks for watching.